Feel like the connections you have are empty, or the people that you spend your time with don't know you, you're not alone. Making deep and meaningful connections as an adult is challenging, but it doesn't have to be. Today, I'm going to share actionable steps to nurture those connections and make friendships that truly matter. Hi, my name's Pierre Kircher at Valor Coaching for Men. I help lonely professional men uncover their self-worth, conquer their limitations, and find the friends that they deeply desire. In a previous video, we discussed about how to make connections with people that we want to develop into deep and meaningful connections or deep and meaningful friends. So in this video, I'm focusing on how to deepen that connection and work towards making them the deep and meaningful friends that you desire. The points that I'm going to cover today in this video are avoiding intoxication and building friendships around intoxication, using active listening when spending time with these people that you want to nurture into good friends, discussing common challenges, navigating differences of opinion, sharing humor, and embracing vulnerability. When I was younger, I spent a lot of time drinking. With drinking, we can make some really good friends. The problem with making friends around drinking is that the friendship is literally built around drinking and spending time with each other. When we get a bit older, we start to realize that we've got drinking buddies and then we've got other people that are friends as well. And so as long as we cherish and hold in high regard the act of getting intoxicated and having a good time, the friends that we've made doing that will always fulfill us in that way. Something that happens as we get a bit older is we start to cherish drinking a lot less and start to value our health and looking after ourselves and showing up for our family and friends that we've made while we're sober. So the first point that I'm wanting to talk about, of course, is why it's a good idea to make and nurture friends without alcohol in the mix. So I briefly touched on a point, which is when we're drinking and we make friends because we're drinking, that friendship revolves around drinking. Often, and I can reflect on my own past, often I've made friends that were through drinking and then I've spent time with them sober and there's no connection. There's just a total disconnect. And so when I try and spend time with these people sober, I'm just like, what do I actually get from this relationship? When we want to nurture and develop a good friendship, the best thing that we can do is do it sober. And there's plenty of ways that we can do that. Listing some things that we can do is go for a coffee. Although, to be fair, men do well at doing things side by side. So other thoughts that you can do is potentially get into a sport together or go for a hike. Maybe you can see if they're into training, do running or cycling, some form of exercise. These are good ideas to work towards creating an environment where you're nurturing this friendship that doesn't involve alcohol. When we're drinking, I know from experience that we're not being authentically ourselves because it's actually causing us to forget about the future, forget about our worries, all of these things. We become more relaxed and we start to share more, right? So you could argue that it's a hack towards sharing who you are. It's not really sharing who you are though, because you're intoxicated. So to be authentic, it's showing up without being intoxicated. And to really have growth and grow as a person and to develop deep and meaningful relationships, it's to have the courage to be vulnerable sober. And that's what people truly appreciate. And when you can do that, that will and help them to trust you so that then they will also share more with you, and then you will appreciate that. When we do that intoxicated, there is some value, but it's not the same. And on top of that, again, it's just nurturing an environment where when you want to spend time with these people, you feel like you've got to have a drink. We've discussed the environment in which we want to create to hold our conversations and nurture the friendship that we want, which is, of course, environments free of intoxication. So when we're spending time with our friends, something that we want to do is active listening. And active listening is powerful in that it helps the person that you're talking to feel like you are listening. Active listening talks about maintaining eye contact and paraphrasing certain parts of what they're saying. As an example, you can, when they've finished saying something, you can potentially use, say, like the last 3 words of their last statement. But it's nodding and maintaining eye contact and repeating back to them what they're saying. Another important part is also that when you're listening, you are listening. You're listening to what they're saying, and you're not thinking about trying to jump in and have your say on something. You're listening until they've finished saying what they're saying, and then you take the time to put some thought together to compile a reply. Or while they're talking, you're listening, and maybe something comes up, but instead of exploring what's come up and then plan out what you're going to say to them when they've finished talking, you can take a note of that, then you continue to listen and then recall that point and explore it live with them by thinking aloud. And in doing this, it helps them to feel listened to and to feel appreciated. When you do this with people that value it, they will in turn do it to you. So when you speak, they will listen to you, and they will hold that, and they won't be waiting for you to finish so that they can just have their say. I'm pretty sure we've all experienced conversations where you're sharing something and it's really impactful to you, and it meant a lot to you, and you're conveying that by sharing this story, this challenge potentially that you went through, and the person, as soon as you've finished that last word, you might not have even finished that last word, and that person jumps in and just starts telling their story, and you don't feel heard. You don't feel heard. You don't feel like they actually care, and you just shut down. So you don't feel like sharing anymore, right? I mean, I'm projecting a little bit here because I'm speaking from experience. I've had conversations where I've been going through a tough time, and I've tried to share what I've been going through, and the person literally, I felt like, didn't listen to me. They were just waiting for me to finish so that they could then say what they wanted to say. So active listening, really important, really awesome thing to do, and people will really appreciate it. 70-30, 70% listening, 30% talking. With active listening, what happens is it builds trust for the other person. The other person will then start to share more with you because you are helping them to feel like they are listened to. And so what will organically come from this is people will start to share more about themselves, and quite often they'll start to share problems, they'll start to share challenges, and this is a good thing. There's a twofold here, and it's just with experience you'll get better at managing or making a call here. But the twofold is that, generally speaking, men connect better by problem solving. But say if you're making a friend and that friend is a female, they might not necessarily want to have their problem solved. So in both cases, empathy is really good. Active listening, listen to the problem, and empathy, put yourself in their shoes and relate to what they're saying. If it's man to man, it's likely a good way to bond by problem solving. We connect via problem solving. We share our problems, and our mates then provide ideas on how we can fix that. As a first port of call, however, it's good just to use empathy and put yourselves in the person's shoes and just relate to what they are saying. And if they want a problem, if they want the problem to be solved, you'll start to get an indication of that, and then the conversation will organically move towards that. As an example, they will potentially say, "Oh, I've tried this and I've tried this, and none of it works." And that's kind of a cue, that can be a cue to then shift towards, okay, well, what ideas can I think of to potentially help? Because often we can't see the woods because of the trees around us, as the saying goes. We're so close to the problem, we struggle to see it big picture. And so these conversations of sharing challenges is a great way to connect. They might share their problem, and then we can connect by sharing a similar problem. And so then there's that there's that relatability. Oh, I can relate to that. I have experienced something similar, or I can appreciate what you went through because I did this. And so you can create a connection through also having had similar experiences. Something that might come up when sharing these thoughts, exploring this, is the possibility of differences in views, which leads us to the next point. We're all human, and we all have different opinions. Our life experiences, everything we've been through, shapes how we view the world. And so, of course, with meeting new people, we're going to come across new ways of viewing things. Now, I definitely can appreciate that having things in common is great, and especially having core principles in common is great. I am a strong believer, and I have the opinion, though, that it is good to have people in your circle that have different opinions. We grow more when we can empathize and appreciate different people's opinions. And we don't necessarily have to agree on it, but when we can see where that person's coming from, it makes us a stronger and better person, because we can empathize from their point of view. We can at least see where they're coming from. And so navigating having differences of opinion is really important. And I would nurture that, because when you can build a friendship where you do have a difference of opinion, but then you can build trust with each other, that you have that difference of opinion, but you can respectfully navigate and share your thoughts without feeling like you've been criticized or attacked, that builds a strong bond, and it's really rewarding. And so when first navigating this field, it can be a little bit challenging. Like everything, you want to start small. Just share. They might throw something out there, or maybe you see an opportunity to share something. And it is literally just like almost anything else. It's like building a muscle, and just start small. Start with a small comment and gauge how they react. And if they react really strongly in a negative way, then you know, okay, let's not go there. But if they react in a negative, positive way, which would be, oh, well, that's interesting, I don't agree with that, that's a more positive way, and in my opinion, welcomes you to explore more, because then it's like, then you have the opportunity to go, okay, well, that's interesting that you don't agree with that. How do you see it? And then read how they share what they share, their differing view. If they come across very staunchly, that's when you've got that choice of like, okay, again, let's not go there. But if they're very much just sharing their thoughts, but not coming across super staunch, it creates this environment of interesting discussion. Nurturing these kind of conversations is super rewarding. Sometimes we can get a little bit carried away, and a good way to break if the conversation's getting a bit intense is to throw a little bit of humour in. Humour is fairly self-explanatory. Essentially, it's cracking a joke and seeing if they respond well. Also, another way that you can use humour is, in this day and age, right? Memes and funny images and funny little clips and videos and stuff like that. Now, if you feel like you've got a very outlined sense of humour, again, similar to nurturing differences of opinion, share something that's on the scale of heading towards what you enjoy. You don't have to go all the way out there. I mean, you can if you want and just get it over and done with as soon as possible and finding out if they enjoy it or not. But a good way to do it is something that's lighter and send them a joke or send them a picture or a meme or whatever that you find funny. And humour is a great way to connect. When we know that we have humour in common with people, it does help to deepen that and nurture that relationship, that deep friendship that we're looking for, right? Because when we know that we've got the same humour as the person, I mean, there's not much more that's more rewarding than, especially when you're not intoxicated, right, than laughing. Laughing and smiling, and humour is, of course, the best way to have a laugh and a smile. And so something that is required for sharing a bit of humour, like many other things, is a bit of courage, because we've got to be vulnerable. We can be a little bit protective of what we find funny, and we can feel vulnerable to share what we think is funny. And so, drawing in on my last point, vulnerability is one of the biggest factors for nurturing a deep and meaningful relationship. And so vulnerability doesn't mean to overshare. It means to share how you're truly feeling and what you're thinking. What you're truly thinking and feeling. Again, I want to really reiterate on the fact that it doesn't mean to overshare and share your deepest, darkest secrets and fantasies or all of the horrible things that you feel you might have done in the past. That's not necessarily about being vulnerable. That can play a part, but that's not about being vulnerable. Just being vulnerable is having the courage and the strength to genuinely, without any sort of form of intoxication, show up in a relationship and share, oh, I don't like that. That didn't make me feel good. Or I really loved that. That was super funny, Or I am confused by that. Admitting also that we don't know something is a very strong form of vulnerability, and it takes great strength. It's hard to admit. As an example, I'm a high school dropout, and so my English wasn't very good for the longest time. It's definitely getting much better now, but still, there's times when I come across words, and especially throughout my life, I've come across words that I have no idea what they mean, or people are talking about some basic stuff from school, and I just don't know what it meant, and so I had to ask them, and I remember feeling like the shame almost that I didn't know this thing. I felt like I should have known, but I didn't. But having that courage to be vulnerable and share and say, oh, I don't know what that means. Can you tell me what that means? So then we can carry on with the conversation. Of course, I didn't say that. I just said, sorry, I don't actually know what that means, or I don't understand that. Can you elaborate on that? That deepens a relationship, because the person who's sharing the story, again, if they value vulnerability and they value and are looking for deep and meaningful friends too, when you can say, oh, I don't actually know what that means, it shows that you're listening, it shows that you're interested, it shows that you care about what they're having to say, what they're saying, because you're admitting you don't know And in admitting that you don't know, you're also indirectly saying, I'm interested in this, I want to understand it, I'm confessing that I don't know this thing, please educate me so I can better follow what you're saying. Like, it's really strong. And it's just having that courage to be vulnerable. And I really just want to reiterate again, being vulnerable doesn't necessarily mean oversharing. Being vulnerable is strength. Being vulnerable is confidence in ourselves and in our ability to show up. Being vulnerable is the stronger way in society because we are sharing things that make us feel vulnerable. So it just innately means that we're stronger, we are being stronger, we are working, we are building our strength and our self-worth by being vulnerable. And so being vulnerable is a key element of nurturing those deep and meaningful relationships that we want. So in summary, we want to create an environment free of intoxication to be able to work on and deepen, nurture these relationships that we want. Going for a hike or a sports or bedding for a coffee. We want to use active listening to help that person know that they're appreciated and we value what they're having to say. Holding eye contact, nodding your head, letting them finish, not interrupting them. Discussing challenges and listening to them, hearing them out about their problems, relating to their problems with your own problems is one way. And then if they're expressing interest in wanting to problem solve, help them problem solve. Especially man to man, helping problem solve is great. Man to woman tends to be more about listening to what they have to say rather than trying to fix the problem. And then when differences come up, explore those differences and nurture if there is a difference in opinion and build that trust with each other that you have a difference of opinion, but you two can communicate about it in a positive way. Sharing humour and having the courage to share the humour, throw some jokes out there. Humour is awesome. We all love it, and it's great for building deep and meaningful relationships. And then, of course, the last point, which is overarches all of this, being that have a bit of courage to be vulnerable. Be vulnerable in sharing what you find funny. Be vulnerable in sharing and connecting with similar issues that you might have with that this person's going through. Just being vulnerable in general, and of course, not necessarily oversharing, but just being able to share what your actual emotions and thoughts are. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more tips on building and nurturing deep and meaningful friendships. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, you have the power to build the friendships that you desire. That's it for today, team. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon.